Good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of Shape Unplugged. I am your host, Stephanie Morris, CEO of Shape America, and today I have a very special guest with us, Kristen Dieffenbach. She is the Executive Director of the United States Center for Coaching Excellence, and she's a professor in the School of Sport Sciences at West Virginia University. So, Kristen, thank you so much for being a guest on Shape Unplugged. We are so excited to have you here with us today.
This is my first time being on an Unplugged, so I'm super excited. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah. So I have really enjoyed learning about your work for the Center for Applied Coaching and Sports Sciences and your work as Executive Director of the United States Center of Coaching Excellence. Can you tell us a little bit more about your role with this organization and the work that they do?
Sure, yeah, absolutely. Well, at West Virginia University, I'm a professor, like you said, in the School of Sports Sciences. So we have actually a program for undergraduates, graduates who are interested, graduate students who are interested in becoming coaches. And then at the doctoral level, we have students who are interested in working in sport coaching education, which is where that piece from the United States Center of Coaching Excellence really comes in. And on a national level, we have a national nonprofit member organization that brings together the people who work in sport coaching education and sport coach development across nonprofit groups, national governing bodies of sport, academics like myself, the people that design curriculum for coaching ed, deliver curriculum for coaching ed, and support coach development in the field. And so we sort of bring those things all together for evidence-informed practices, bringing sports psych, educational theory, other things together, including the sports sciences, to help enhance quality coaching and help the coaches, and by proxy, help the athletes.
Yeah, I love that. And it's so important. I know as a mom of 3 active kids who all play sports, that these pieces are really important in helping them be successful and enjoy the experience. So it's all terrific. And thank you so much.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about the history of USCCE. I was really excited, and it was a surprise to me to learn from you at the recent meeting of the Joint Commission for Sport Medicine and Science that, in fact, back in the mid-1990s,
Yep.
Shape America, then AFERD, of course, and specifically NASPE, or the National Association for Sport and Physical Education, we had a role in helping shape this group. So can you share a little bit more with our listeners about that?
Oh, sure. Happy to. And it's actually really exciting, right? Because sport and physical activity have always been really, really tightly connected. The earliest sport coaches were often people trained from a physical education perspective. And some of the earliest physical education training was very much aligned with, hey, we've got to get kids more active. How do we do this? And grew out of some of the early sport programming efforts way back at the turn of the last century. And so as when SHAPE was still AFERD and it had all its subcomponents, one of the areas within that was the conversation around how do we start to support the preparation and support of coaches, knowing that most of our youth sports in the United States are based on volunteerism, and we really rely on volunteer youth sports to serve all the needs of kids, from high performance travel teams, and I'm going to use that in quotes, all the way down to just community rec programs where we teach physical skills to kids in the field, and we rely on volunteers. And so in the 90s, as the conversation was evolving around accrediting physical education teacher ed programs in academic settings, there was a conversation around similar type programs in academic settings that were working with coach education, but that extended out into community groups as well, because there are a lot of organizations that offer those, weekend workshops and trainings and other pieces, because you don't need an academic degree to coach in especially youth sport type settings. And so the early conversations and the concerns around this actually led to the creation of the National Standards for Sport Coaches, which is a document that Shape America published and just did the 3rd iteration of that in 2019. And so as time went along and as AFERD grew to SHAPE and things were growing, the conversation around the accreditation of coaching education was growing as well. And there was a council for accreditation of coaching education within Shape America. And in 2016, through conversations with the board, and we got permission. And in 2017, we grew out into our own entity, because SHAPE was sort of tightening its focus on the PE side. And so we thought it would be better for the two groups to be separate so that we could parallel support each other instead of trying to be in one group and maybe confuse the mission and the vision. And so now we're in a really good place where SHAPE has the standards for National Standards for Sport Coaches. We use them in our accreditation model to accredit programs, academic and non-academic programs. And it creates a really nice synergy of opportunities to talk about that continuum of physical education in the classroom to the kind of physical education needed in the sports settings. And how do we make that long-term athletic development model work, both in and out of the classroom? So really excited that we've kept such a strong partnership with SHAPE and that there are so many opportunities, and many of our members work in some sort of dual role or overlapping role within the two fields.
Thank you so much. I find that history so interesting and I have so much appreciation for it. And I really do agree with you that the opportunity to be in partnership and to support each other, it makes so much sense. And I appreciate all of our board members who back in the day made these really smart decisions. So it's fantastic. And thank you for sharing all of that. So speaking directly to those listening right now, as you just mentioned, there are so much overlap and we know so many of our physical education teachers coach.
Yeah.
So speaking directly to those listening right now who are coaches themselves, what do you most want them to know about USCCE and how it serves them?
Oh yeah, so that's great. So within the USCCE, what we really are passionate about is the quality of how we coach, which is really the same thing of how we teach. It's the same conversation, right? And so how can we start to think about collectively, regardless of the sport you coach, what are those underpinning elements of quality coaching or quality teaching that we all share? And how do we find those skills? How do we identify those skills? How do we reinforce those skills? How do we grow those skills? And how, if you're a coach, how do you help grow those skills in your peers and in others? And there really is a need and a space for these peer conversations about how we do our job, not just what we are coaching. And so the USCC really brings together people who are passionate about supporting each other professionally and then working in that level of Pat Summitt a long time ago spoke quite often in her work about how she brought in assistant coaches with the goal of crafting them and helping them develop how they coached. Basketball was secondary, but how they coached. And I think that's something that we are really trying to bring a lot of conversation and attention to. How do we do this as a peer group? And how do we support each other? And there's a lot of room, whether you're bringing up your junior assistants or you're working with a whole group within an organization. How do you support that growth? And that's where the USCCE comes in and brings folks together and talks about education theory in coaching.
I love that. I think it's so interesting. And I bet everybody listening is really excited to know more about the work of the USCCE and how they can get involved too. So thank you, Kristen. That's terrific.
And we have a conference in the summer. This year it's in June, 10, 11, 12 in Columbus, Ohio. And we welcome, go online. We do virtual engagement events that are free. We have a lot of videos of the previous events. We welcome anybody who's interested in this space to reach out and ask us questions or join us.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you also serve as the chair of the Sport Steering Committee for the National Physical Activity Alliance, a very big role and an important group. Key focus for this group is reviewing the National Physical Activity Plan, which is, of course, a very meaningful effort underway right now. Can you share a little bit more with us about the SSC and this work?
Sure. So if you haven't seen the plan itself, it's a large comprehensive document that's designed to help provide some guidelines and ideas on how different groups and organizations that work in physical education and sport can be really working towards quality impact efforts. And the Sport Steering Committee oversees one section of that document that specifically deals with sport. And the most important thing, and the reason that I actually stepped into that role, is the recognition that there are this is a collective impact effort. This takes so many of us working together, and you can't row a boat unless everybody's oars are hitting the water at the same time and moving in the same direction. And so becoming familiar with these kinds of documents and working in these spaces, recognizing, how do my efforts align with and fit in, becomes so important. And so the work with the Sports Steering Committee is really to try to help make sure people know you're not alone. There's others doing this work. How do we do this work together, our own way in our own spaces? Because contextually, it's so different. That's completely understandable in our space. But there are overlapping ideas that when we do them together, we reinforce messages, we reinforce opportunities, we reinforce growth. But that means we have to be talking. So the Sports Steering Committee's mission is to make it understandable in terms of what those expectations are and how does someone know when to put their oar in the water, so to speak, so that we can all row together. And it also works to align with other essential documents like the Presidential Council for Sport, Fitness, and Nutrition's National Youth Sports Strategy, and some of the other essential documents that are out there that are really well done by really educated, prepared people with the best interests of our collective health in mind. But because they're paper, we lose sight of the action behind them. And so the work of the Sports Steering Committee is really to try to make the paper come to life and connect the two.
So well said. I have so much appreciation for all of that. I know I'm really happy and proud to represent Shape America on this sports steering committee, and I've really admired your work as chair. And it's such important work to everything that you just said, and in particular, trying to find the actionable pieces of this and make sure that they play out in the right way. So thank you for your leadership, and thank you for sharing all of that.
No problem. I think one of the things that folks that are listening, it's so easy to get caught up in the grind of the day to day, and knowing that the role that we potentially play when we're working, especially with kids in physical activity and engagement, is so huge. And there is something bigger out there that is trying to make sure that the efforts of the folks in the field really makes a difference and an impact. And we can't do it without all levels and all areas. And so I am just super grateful for everybody who's willing to put in those spaces in that time, because we all know just physical activity and sport are just such a crucial part of our life experience that can bring so much positive if we do them well, carefully, and with a lot of forethought.
So well said. Right there. Mic drop. Perfect ending to our podcast
Thanks.
today. Kristen, I cannot thank you enough for being our guest today. Any last words for our audience?
No, I super appreciate the opportunity to speak. I'm so excited that you're on the committee, because we've got some real powerhouse doers on that committee, which I think hopefully we can come back and give a report at some point about what's going on and help people who are out in the field really connect to the work. So I encourage folks to keep doing the good work, and I'm super appreciative for everything that SHAPE does to create these opportunities.
Absolutely. We are definitely bringing you back on as a guest to
Oh,
continue
cool.
sharing updates on all this good work. Thank you so much again for your time and for being a guest. And to everyone listening, thank you for your time and joining us for today's Shape Unplugged. And we hope that you'll continue to tune in. And thanks so much.
Thank you.